Now, if someone said sustainable renewable energy, cows probably aren't the first thing that would spring to mind. But if the project of which these cows are part proves to be a success, pretty soon tens of millions of India's poorest communities will be cooking on gas made from cow dung. These cows are part of an experimental community biogas plant in the village of Tumkur Taluk at the southern end of the state of Karnataka. It's an example of what's called bottom-up development. And like all bottom-up projects, the organisers began by working with local people to identify their needs. And when they started asking about alternative cooking fuels, they got some surprising responses.
We spent a lot of time together in villages trying to see what makes it attractive. If I were an outsider, and if I find that cooking energy was the most difficult one to get, then the obvious approach would have been to give cooking energy in a very easy, simple way. And that did not appear to be the right approach what we had. So we have been looking at providing cooking energy technologies which also provides some form of income to rural areas.
Like Mrs. Parvathy, most of the people in India's 600,000 villages cook on simple wood-fired stoves made from clay or mud. They're usually inside and they can create a lot of smoke. It's no coincidence that rural people have very high rates of eye infections and disease. Although you can buy it, like Mrs. Parvathy, most people collect their own firewood. It's usually a job done by women or children, and a typical family uses around 30 kilos a week. But as more and more wood gets used up, people have to travel further and further to get it. And just gathering fuel often takes around 1 day of someone's time every week. It's time that could be spent engaged in more productive activities, or in the case of children, going to school. And it's one of the reasons that lots of rural families find it hard to break out of poverty. Like Mrs. Parvathy, Mrs. Cholamadi does most of her cooking on a wood fire. But like some better off families, inside her house she's also got a stove that runs on bottled gas. She was given the stove as part of an election promise by a local politician, but she doesn't use it very much. Perhaps that's because rather than asking about people's needs, the politician just assumed she'd want a gas-fired stove.
எங்களுக்கு விறகு உண்ணாக்கி அடுப்பில் வச்சுட்டு எங்கேனாலும் போய்க்கிடலாம். இது கேஸில் ஒரு பக்கம் வச்சுட்டு போக முடியாது. அது கிட்ட நின்னே தான் அதை சமைக்கணும்.
எது ஈஸியாக உங்களுக்கு சமையல் முடியுது?
ஈஸியாக இது வந்து சமையல் முடியுதுன்னாக்கி இதில் உபயோகப்படுத்துறதுக்கு நாங்கள் முடியல. காப்பி கொஞ்சம் குழம்பு மட்டும்தான் இதில் வைக்கிது. ஒதிக்கல இங்கே.
The other reason Mrs. Cholamadi doesn't use her gas stove is because she has to pay for gas. And cost to the user was one of the main reasons researchers at the International Energy Initiative focused on biogas when it came to finding alternative cooking fuels. Tumkur's biogas starts life as cow dung and straw. Every shovel load contains billions of bacteria and other organisms that feed off the organic material, breaking it down. But the process and end products are very different depending on the presence or absence of oxygen. If there's air around, it's called aerobic fermentation, and that produces carbon dioxide, ammonia, and some other gases in small quantities. It also generates a lot of heat, and a final product that can be used as fertilizer. Anaerobic fermentation takes place when there's no air around, and it produces methane, carbon dioxide, and an end product with much more nitrogen, making it great fertilizer. To help it ferment anaerobically, first the cow dung is mixed with water. It's then wheeled across the fields and poured into a biogas digester.
Once the dung along with water is mixed in the inlet tank, it is left to accumulate But with the progress of time and with 45 days gestation period, you get gas which accumulates in the dome here.
Biogas plants are easy to build, and all the tools and materials needed to make one are readily available in rural India. They're one example of what's called appropriate technology, and it's another reason that biogas was chosen for the project by the International Energy Initiative. Each plant consists of 3 chambers: a feed tank, the digester, and a sludge tank. The gas produced in the digester is collected in a metal dome that moves up and down on supports. It's a tried and trusted technology, and there are already 4 million private biogas plants in India, ranging enormously in size. But what makes the project in Tumkur different is that it operates at a whole village level.
The plants have been designed, they've been located rather, to support the number of people in the houses around. So we have eight plants altogether, 6 of 8 cubic meters and 2 of 10 cubic meters.
Each of the 8 gas holders are linked via pipes to all the houses nearby. As part of the project, every household was also given their own gas hob, and having been consulted and involved in the project from the very beginning, people readily switched from cooking with wood to cooking on biogas. As well as health benefits of having less smoky houses, using gas also means less work.
ಹೇಗೆ
ಸೌದೆ ತರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ
ಹಾಂ ಒಂದು
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅಡುಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ
ಹಾಂ ಆಯಿತು
ಬೇಗ ಅಡುಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು
ಓಕೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನೇನಿತ್ತು ಸೌದೆ ಹಣ್ಣೆಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹೊಗೆ ಇರಲಿಲ್ವಾ
ಹೊಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರೋದು
ಈಗ
ಇವಾಗ ಹೊಗೆ
ಇಲ್ಲ ಓಕೆ ಸಿ ಶಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಗೋ ಅರೌಂಡ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟೇಕ್ firewood from the forest. That problem is not there right now, number 1. Number 2, she says yes, it is much quicker to cook now. Earlier, okay, it used to take more time. Then the third item is, okay, it used to be a lot of smoke over here. That is eliminated. These are the 3 advantages of using gas.
Not having to gather firewood also means that children are more likely to go to school. But perhaps the real reason everyone's so keen to switch is that the gas is free. Or at least the project's been set up in a way so people don't have to pay for it. And it's even created employment. Tumkur's cows weren't selected so much because of their dung, but more because they're good milkers. By selling the milk they produce, the project's not only able to pay all the people looking after the cows and keeping the biogas plants topped up, but also means that the gas itself can be supplied free of charge. It's still early days, but so far it's been a great success, and the team behind the project are already exploring different possibilities and sources of biomass.
In addition to the kind of animal dung-based biogas plants, we have evolved biogas plants which can use grass, agro-residues like straws which are not being used as fodder, agro-residues like sugarcane trash, weeds that are harvested regularly, and even leaf litter from trees. All these can now be converted in very simple biogas plant designs to biogas for cooking. And in addition to getting just biogas for cooking, we also have found ways of raising mushrooms, earthworms or vermicompost, pest repellents, fumigants for grains, running very small pico level gensets, inoculant carriers like this, a basket of technologies that can also increase their incomes in villages, so that the woman who ends up using these biogas plants also has a cash incentive to keep it running.
Before the project started, so much firewood was being taken from the forest around Tumkur that it was disappearing, and where it had been stripped away, the land was being eroded. Now that demand for firewood's almost stopped completely, with the help of a little planting, the forest's already regenerating. As more and more people in India, China and other developing countries around the world make use of biogas, the hope is that other forests will also begin to return.